On our morning show today, we kick off another week of good community conversation on the morning show. We have State Senator Howard Marklein of the 17th District and Todd Novak, 51st Assembly District Representative, here to join us in the studio for the monthly visit. They left Tony Kurtz somewhere along the way. I'm not sure. He's AWOL.
If you find him, let me know.
Yeah, there you go. We'll put an all points bulletin out for him today. So
I haven't seen him all month.
Haven't you?
So we're halfway through the month here. So
I don't know.
So, wow.
Anyway,
I saw him at the parade. He was at the rodeo parade on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say he keeps posting on Facebook that he's doing things, but I don't know. And then, with AI, you never know anymore.
See, Tony, that's what happened when you get talked about when you don't show up. Oh, well. You guys have been busy going to dairy breakfast, haven't you, Howard?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of four or five dairy breakfasts that I've been able to attend. I think we're done now. So we had a couple over the weekend, Lafayette County on Saturday, and then Grant County yesterday. So yesterday in Lancaster at Majestic View Farm, boys, huge crowd. I haven't seen the numbers yet, but big crowd, and I don't know, it was just a good event. And Saturday, Todd and I were at Lafayette County dairy breakfast, and the breakfast was held at the college farm, UW Platteville College Farm. And because of all the rain they had down there last week, they couldn't park on site, so they shuttled, and I think that may have had some impact on the attendance, unfortunately, on Saturday over there. So, and you can't do much about the rain. And they had a lot of rain down there.
They did. Did you have much damage across your district, Todd, in that storm that rolled through last week?
Yeah, more water and wind. We had a real. I had damage to my house actually. What day was that last week? The wind.
Wednesday, I think.
Oh man, there were a lot of trees down. There was this path, and I happened to be home because it was later in the afternoon, and it was straight line winds. You could see it in the rain. I've never heard of this happening before. One of the windows of my house was sucked out.
Really?
Yeah, my neighbor called and is like, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yeah, and you better go upstairs because you got rain, your window's gone, and rain pouring in your house. I can see your curtains flying out." So I went up there, and it was like walking into a hurricane. I literally couldn't do anything. I had to shut the door till the storm passed. So, and there were trees all over the area, and I drove around the next day, and it seems to be that path west. It was some damage, but a lot of water. We were just talking ahead of time. We were fortunate enough for the rain. I know our Representative Tranel, I think he's at 8 to 10 inches where he's at down by Cuba City, and I think in our area we only got 3 inches maybe in Dodgeville. I don't know. So.
Spring Green, I would say over a few days, about 2 inches, I think. And it came, 6/10 and 6/10, and we had. Which wasn't bad, and we needed the rain.
We did, yeah.
We didn't need a foot of rain, like some of them got down by Cuba City and stuff. But yeah, it was, like I said, in the Spring Green area, I think it was pretty decent. Came pretty nice.
We were in Darlington yesterday, Howard and I were for Canoe Fest, and they flooded the Pecatonica, always, but it didn't quite get over the road, but the fairgrounds was flooded and everything, because, the water goes down there, so, but it wasn't too bad.
We were getting weather info when that was going on, and one of the things read out that it was 100-mile-an-hour wind in Livingston that day.
I would say that's probably what hit Dodgeville, because there was it seemed like that whole area, and then it went west. I've never seen wind like that. Literally, my house, which is brick, you could feel it shaking, so I just, and I live in the middle of town, so out in the country,
You guys need to make a proclamation to stop this severe weather. Then that was it for the year, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't think so.
Something like that. The other thing I was going to mention to you, Todd, is Dodgeville baseball team making it to state. That's an exciting thing.
First time since 1963. So, and I'm really, I think it's a 63. I may have my years off. Howard was around back then. I wasn't. And kind of shout out to my old boss, Pat Riley at the Dodgeville Chronicle, who I believe was on in 1963 and has helped coach still the team now. So I'm really I kind of kudos to him. So
He's done a lot for baseball, hasn't he?
he is Mr. Baseball.
Yeah.
So so I think about him during this time, So I'm very happy for him.
Well, good luck to Dodgeville as well. Well, getting into the kind of the meat and potatoes, last time you were here, Howard, it was fresh. It was a day or so after the bipartisan bill for tax relief and special education funding was voted down. I'm guessing you've looked into some of those numbers a little bit more since that time.
Yeah, and again, that was that all started back in January when we received good news that our tax collections were coming in a lot stronger than what we had projected a year ago at this time when we did the budget. So we had a surplus, and we worked a couple of months with the governor to come up with a proposal, and I believe it was a very reasonable proposal, and would have provided more funding for our school districts, which is sorely needed. Would have provided checks, $300 per person checks to people. Would have exempted the income tax on overtime, exempted income tax on tips, would have provided $350 million of property tax relief, and property taxes are a big concern that I hear about. So anyway, it was unfortunate, and but the impact to our local school districts and our schools, they're fully aware of what the impact is here. But some of the local school districts, and these are, I'll just give you the second year, which is the fully phased in amount, and this is spendable resources that the districts can use. Okay, but Boscoville, $272,000 per year. Dodgeville, $227,000 per year. River Valley, $377,000 per year. Riverdale, $172,000 per year. Every one of our school districts had a significant increase in the amount of additional, and this has to do with the special education reimbursement, increasing the reimbursement rate to 50%. So, for all of my districts collectively, it would have amounted to $8 million more per year. Okay, and that not just one-time money. That is every year, into the future. So, I know our school districts were very, very disappointed in the outcome. I was up in Soldiers Grove last Friday and chatting with the North Crawford district administrator. And he, it's just unfortunate because they, North Crawford could use it too. It's $145,000 for them. And it's as I described it, to you in the past. It's just politics at its worst.
Todd, we haven't had a chance for you to comment. You weren't here last time, but your overall take on how things went in May.
I actually, it's my time in the legislature. I think this was one of the most appalling, I've used that word a lot, thing I've ever seen, and it was pure politics. I've never, at this level, you have a Democrat governor negotiating for months with, the Republican assembly and the Senate, getting to a good point. This was a good deal all the way around, as Howard said, the taxpayers, for the schools, for the public. And I left that Capitol shocked. And you don't always think people are paying attention to what you do. And as we've been around, or I've been around, I'm sure Howard's hearing the same thing. People are actually coming up and say, what happened? What happened? I'm not going to get a check now? Or, my property taxes, and they get it. They understand it. So I think our friends on the other side of the aisle and a few members in our party way overcalculated where the public is on this. And you saw that. The poll that came out, 80% of people supported this. And I have sent a letter with some of my colleagues in the Assembly because we were getting so much feedback from the public asking the governor to restart negotiations, and not really negotiate, but just to call us back in and do it again. I just don't quite understand this. And to Howard's point, the school superintendents, I've heard for a few of mine too, they just are like, what happened? how did this happen? They were excited. They were talking to us before the vote and just very excited. And thank you for getting reimbursement rates up to 50% for special education. And afterwards, they thanked us for trying, but they just were stunned too. This literally would have done so much for so many school districts, and it's just very unfortunate. Hopefully, we still have time. Somebody prevailing wisdom somewhere comes in, and the governor, you saw his reaction for a few weeks afterwards. He's not letting up on it.
You were appreciative of the work that the governor and his crew did on this, weren't you, Howard?
Oh yeah, I compliment the governor, and the governor and his staff, chief of staff, and Jenny Dye were incredibly reasonable. Okay, and I can't criticize the governor at all. He was incredibly reasonable with the proposal. On the stuff that I just read off to you is, there's so many different people that would have been affected positively by this. The person getting tips, and the person working overtime, and property taxpayers in our school districts, and just people just getting a check back, and gas prices are high. A lot of costs. I talked to a young family, and they said, "Geez, we could use $600, with our young kids and stuff. That with the cost being up and stuff." So, I don't know. It's just it was disappointing, incredibly disappointing, and it would take in the Senate, it would take 2 senators that voted no to reconsider their position. And I am hopeful that some of those senators are listening to their constituents. Like Todd said, I mean, I had somebody run out of this was at the Montfort parade. A school board member run out of on the street and says, "Howard, can we get this done?" And so people are aware of it. So anyway, so it's going to take 2 senators that voted no to reconsider, and I'll tell you, one of them represents this county right here, and she voted no, and I really don't know why, and I hope that she's giving some serious consideration to her vote.
You have a meeting tomorrow on the subject, is that
Yeah,
correct?
we're going to be meeting tomorrow. We have a caucus just to kind of see where everybody's at again, and so I mean, I got nothing to. It's positive, There's anytime there's a conversation, that's it's a time for, at least for me, for optimism that hopefully we can get something done. So we'll see. Again, it's a pretty simple concept. Two senators that voted no, and again, the polling, it also wasn't skewed like to one part of the state, where people in Milwaukee voted, supported it or didn't. I mean, it was broad based all over the state of Wisconsin. So I don't remember any issue offhand where there was 80% support. I mean, in today's political environment, you can say, is the sky blue? And somebody would probably disagree, So when you get a 80% poll, I mean, that's pretty telling.
Indeed. I guess the ones that voted no, Todd, are talking about worried about down the road 4 or 5 years.
Oh, that's ridiculous. And this is a surplus. I mean, it's the taxpayers' money, first of all, and this is the people that voted no want that money sitting there, because if they think if they take over government next year, they've got that money there, and I can guarantee you they won't use it for a deal like this. And this would have not broke the bank. When I came in, we were not in a very good shape budget-wise. It was even worse when Howard was elected. This is nuts to let that kind of money sit in there. And the same people that are saying it would have broke the bank have been complaining we need to do something with the surplus. But then we do. And this is the worst part of politics. This is the part of the job that I hate. And so, I mean, you look around our neighboring states, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, people should dig into that and see what they're dealing with. Massive budget deficits, massive spending problems. And then here we are in an island here with a $2 billion surplus, and we can't use it for good. So it just baffles me.
Yeah, I read that a few won't come back if you go back into session 2. They've said that. Have you heard that or not?
I mean, we will come back.
You will?
Yeah, my caucus, we're ready to come back. That whenever, if they said come in next week, we got the votes, we're gonna pass it, we would be back in a minute, and there's no doubt in my mind.
How does that work? Are you on a speed dial, Howard, when they call you back in, or is your office made aware that something's moving?
I'm not. No. There's communication. We have either a in-person meeting or else Zoom meetings to keep people informed of what's going on.
We have a caller chiming into the program this morning talking about school districts, and we may have talked about this before, but maybe I'll direct it at you, Todd, because I know you have a lot of Amish families in your district, but how do you take into account Amish families in districts, and does that play a role in regards to the school districts and their funding and those kind of things?
No, they don't count for anything, and I'm not even sure how many Amish kids are out there, to tell you the truth. They have their own school system, and I believe they're exempt. They only go till 8th grade. I do know at one time, because it's my home school district where I'm from, Iowa Grant, they were working with the Amish there to try to come up with a way that the school district could teach. Somehow they had come up with a solution or an idea and kind of got there, but it kind of fell apart. So, no, the Amish, but you got to remember, and I know people don't think so, Amish pay property taxes, so they are supporting the public school system. They don't count towards aid to a school per student or anything like that.
And if the district is able to maybe teach a music class or whatever, then they could count those.
I would think
right?
I'm not sure how that would work. Probably a percentage type thing, but I know there's been different attempts around the state to work with the Amish to try to not integrate, but do some things. But the Amish, and I know some of them are, because I have a large contingent in Lafayette County, they're pretty strict, and very nice people, but they're very strict on what's taught, and they're pretty much arithmetic, writing, and that's about it. I don't think they teach history or anything like that, religion. Mm-hmm. So,
anything you want to add, Howard?
No, I mean, Todd is right. I mean, there's no impact at all on school funding, on the equalization aid formula, on the revenue limits for our school districts or whatever. They're just, they're just, as Todd said, they're just not counted.
EMS has been another hot topic here lately, and I know that you guys have been working diligently to try and support local EMS. Anything on that news?
Yeah, so Joint Finance Committee, we did release the money. We had put money in the budget, $3.5 million when we did the budget a year ago, and it was in the Joint Finance Committee supplemental appropriation, and we passed legislation subsequent to that, kind of defining what the money would be used for training for our EMS units, and the money was to be used for really two purposes. One was to expand the number of slots in our tech colleges so that they could be teaching more EMTs, more volunteers, and what was happening was, and I'll make up some numbers here. Let's say that a full class is 12. Okay, so Southwest Tech would get 7 people to sign up for a class. Well, it's not a full class, so they'd cancel the class, which means we lose 7 people who have made the decision to become volunteers in their communities. We lose 7. So what the one bill we did that I did would have backfilled the tech colleges to say, listen, if you get 7, you get 8, run the class. We'll backfill that. We need those 7 or 8 volunteers out there. The other part of it was to provide funding for the coursework for people getting into the EMS services. So, because it runs, $1,000 or better for the coursework and stuff. So, starting this fall, that the state will pick that up for your entry level coursework into to become a EMR or an EMT. So excited about that. Again, that removes another barrier for people that are considering volunteering for their EMS units.
Here in our county, there's the discussion, I'm sure other counties as well, about townships and the county and the city and who's responsible and those kind of things. Is that going on pretty well all around the districts?
Yeah. There's, and one of the things that we have done is we've provided, we did legislation that would expand the districts that, because it used to be county-wide districts were the ones that qualified for the exemption, the tax exemption for those EMS units. Okay, so and we got a lot of districts that overlap. Down Cuba City in 2 counties. I mean, we have a lot of communities like that. So a county border shouldn't restrict somebody from that. So we passed legislation this last session that would permit something greater than or not restricted by the county line. So I'm hopeful that some of our EMS units will be communicating with each other. If we can work together, maybe eliminate some duplication, maybe provide better services or faster services. So staffing still is the biggest concern that I hear about with our EMS units. Just getting staffing, especially during the daytime. With our smaller rural communities. They it's not a joke, but they say sometimes if you have a issue at 7:30 at night, you're probably going to be fine. Everybody's back home from working out of town, but now is probably may not be a good time because a lot of people are working out of town for some of our smaller communities.
True. Staffing is one thing, then also the equipment is not cheap either, Todd.
No, that's true. And there are a lot. I will say, like when I was in Dodgeville or Mayor Dodgeville, we bought a lot with grant money. There's a lot of grant money out there for stuff like that, so that's important to keep with that. And I know actually, when the COVID federal money and stuff for COVID, we really pumped into updating EMS and things like that. So, no, I mean, you really. I know most EMS or EMT districts or whatever fundraise for different things too, and that's a double-edged sword. They really shouldn't have to, but they do, and for a piece of equipment or whatever they need, and which is good to see. It brings the community together. But I agree with Howard. Part of the problem is the people, and people are busy. We've got population that isn't really growing, and it takes a special person to do what an EMT does. Trust me, I would never do it. I just couldn't do it, and it takes a special person to do that, and that's what's important too. So we need to make sure our people can pick up the phone and have somebody at their door to help them in a time of need, and that's the main thing.
Absolutely, and you kind of take it for granted that they're always going to be there too. I think. So.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm fortunate. I live in a city, so I mean, if I call the ambulance, they're going to be there in 5 minutes probably. Where my dad lives over by Black Hawk Lake in a house, and so it takes a little long. So it's important that I think about them as they get older, out in the country, and versus me, and it's very important.
Very good. We'll take a break on the morning show and come back with more from Howard Markline and Todd Novak here on today's edition of the morning show. Howard Markline and Todd Novak, our guests on today's edition of the morning show. Welcome back. Well, we talked about the farms. You were out for some dairy breakfast. Again, agriculture is a spot where we're seeing lots of farms go by the wayside, unfortunately, Howard.
Yeah, and it's sad, and we're even seeing this. Counties are having a harder time to find a location for a dairy breakfast. There just aren't that many dairy farms anymore, which is unfortunate. But so one of the things I was looking at was the number of dairy farms in the state of Wisconsin over a long period of time, 70, 80, 90 years. And Phil, you and I are not that probably that far apart in age here, so When do you think we had the biggest drop in the number of dairy farms in the state of Wisconsin? The number of farms.
I would say about
Kind of like I'll be like Mr. Bray sitting here doing the quiz. Yeah.
and I'll fail miserably as usual. I'm going to say about 1990.
Okay. Yep. Actually, and it's kind of interesting when you look at the data, but post like World War II, the number of farms started to drop, pretty dramatically, and then we hit about late 50s, 1960s, and keep in mind we had small farms milking 15 cows, cans.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And and back about then is when and I remember the cans when I was a young kid. But that's when the cheese plant said, we don't want to handle the cans. They're heavy, and so they went to bulk tanks. And so if you're a farmer milking 15 cows, in some of these small barns you see all over the countryside, or used to see all over the countryside, were you going to buy a bulk tank? So a lot of them said that was, we're done at that point. So actually that time frame, late 50s, early 60s, it was kind of actually a technological change, going from cans to bulk tanks when the biggest drop occurred. So a lot of times people think, well, 2008 milk price was terrible and whatever. Actually, the biggest drop, occurred probably 20 years before that.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
It's kind of interesting. We used to have just a phenomenal. We had 160,000 dairy farms in Wisconsin around the 1940, and by 59 that had dropped to 100,000. So we lost, in a relatively short period of time, 60,000, and it just kept dropping after that.
We're losing them still today, though, Todd.
Yeah, we are. It was funny because I was at the Lafayette County Dairy Break. I was talking to a friend of mine, Howard knows him too, and he told me, he says, the cows are going to go, he said, this year. And I said, I said, is it that bad? Or he goes, no, he says, I only milk 35. And he's a third, fourth generation farmer. And I said, well, why are you only, well, he said his barn only holds, what do you say, 38? He milks 30, tie stall. He said, no, I love my cows. He just said, I'm not making any money on them, but I like milking cows. And he says, I get up every morning. And he said, my son's going to take the farm over. He doesn't want to farm. And he says, I'm getting older. And so it was kind of interesting story. Can kind of relate. But Howard and I were talking earlier before we got on the radio that, man, these farmers, they're efficient. They have gotten, we lost more cows, or not more cows, more dairy farms, but man, the ones that are going are efficient. It's just blows my mind when I go to some of these farms and watch them operate and how efficient they are, and they can tell you that day how much X they made and how much and it just kind of blows my mind compared to when I grew up on the farm. We had a pretty good sized farm and we milked 55 cows, which was probably a lot back then. But I get in this discussion with people. They talk to me about dairy farms, closing or switching and stuff, and they talk about we got to save the small farmer, and I might ask them, what is a small farmer? And you just kind of get a look back and define, because nobody can define that, but it's just a nice tagline to say that we're losing small farmers. So a lot of my dairy farmers, our neighbor in Cobb next to our farm, he went out of dairy but converted to beef. And a lot of them are doing that now too. I know that because that's where the money is. The beef farmers have taken a beating for years, and now they're actually doing pretty decent. So some of those dairy farms that you're seeing go out are converting to beef, and that's a good thing too, because we do need more beef. So
we do. President Trump was in the state in Chippewa Falls last week, I believe it was, but talking about the outlook for farmers, and it's kind of bleak right now, especially with gas prices and everything. Howard.
Yeah, and people ask me, how are the farmers doing? And it depends. Like Todd said, if you're raising beef right now, they're doing pretty well, at this point. So, cash farmers, grain, and corn and soybeans, it's tough. Input costs are high with diesel and fertilizer and all that. So, I think so much depends on their balance sheet. I mean, farmers that have had their farm for a while and don't have a whole lot of debt. It's kind of like probably any business. If you don't have a whole lot of debt and stuff, you can weather some bad times. So if you got a lot of debt, and interest rates are not, are still pretty high at this point. So not relative to maybe going way back, but still, I mean, it's if you got a lot of debt, that's it can be a challenge.
Yeah, sounds like maybe the oil prices are going down a little bit today, though.
Boy, that would be awesome.
Right.
That's something that hits everybody. People driving to work, just running errands. So and I've talked to some of the convenience store owners, and they can see the difference. The number of people that are coming in and they're putting, instead of filling up, they're putting $20 in the tank. Mm-hmm. That's all they can afford, and they're not spending as much inside the store as they, because they got to put whatever money they have in the gas tank to get to work, So yeah, they can see the impact.
It trickles down to other businesses too.
Yeah, too, and I think because a lot of people will say to me about that don't understand farming is you talk about gas prices and fertilizer prices. The farmers, if they can, will lock in, and so a lot of the farmers insulated themselves a little bit by locking in last winter the fuel prices, diesel. I talked to a farmer who farms quite a few acres. He locked his diesel in at $2.85 a gallon last year, last winter. So this spring he was paying $2.85 a gallon when diesel was up to over $4, and a lot of them lock in fertilizer and stuff like that. Now, not every person can do that, of course. You've got to have the usage and meet the requirements, but so a lot of them do that. Like I said, it goes back to diversifying. As they know they leverage a lot and know what they're doing. But I agree with Howard. I mean, gas. It's nice to see gas coming down. I was just looking at the oil prices. We were talking, it's really dropping today, so we need to get it back under $3 a gallon. It was nice there for a while, and I filled up this morning on my way up here in Lone Rock, which is always the cheapest gas station.
That's what people say.
It's just like, then that gets around. Everybody's like, go to Lone Rock. If you're going through Lone Rock, fill up, because it's always less money there. So
yeah. Seems to be. Howard, you're looking for re-election. We talked about that last time a little bit, but some others have been retiring. Why did you consider this, and why are you going to be running again in November?
I've got a high level of energy, and somebody asked me a while ago, so how long are you going to do this? And I said, as long as I'm effective, and I've been effective, I believe, in my role as co-chair of Joint Finance Committee for 3 budgets now, 3 budgets that were responsible, 3 budgets that a Democratic governor signed. So, there's a fair amount of compromise there. Also demonstrates that, they were reasonable budgets as well. So, been a strong advocate we touched on EMS, strong advocate just for rural areas, and we, unfortunately, we're losing very gradually people with ag backgrounds and people with a lot of rural backgrounds. So I'm proud to represent a rural part of our state, and I was born and raised in a rural area, dairy farm boy, and I love help, and I love helping people. A lot of the stuff that Todd and I do in the Capitol has got nothing to do with writing a bill. It has to do with somebody has an issue with getting a driveway permit with the DOT or have some construction project. And I still get calls from people in Richland County that say, I know you don't represent me anymore, but can you help with X, with an agency. So and it's that's really neat when we can help them solve a problem, getting a permit, a license, and it's just very satisfying when we can do that. So I enjoy that part of the work as well.
You're running again as well, Todd?
Yeah. This will be my second election in my new district, and Howard's first in his new district. And I think to kind of go off what Howard says is we kind of have a team. It's a rarity. We have a teamwork philosophy. Representative Tranel and I and Howard, and even though we kicked Tony out of this Senate seat, we work with Tony, and we, like Howard said, we do a lot of stuff you don't even know about with, like, it's funny because I'm just dealing with a DOT issue. And that's the kind of stuff I enjoy. It's like this weekend, not even campaign related because I do it not even campaign years, election years, like the dairy breakfast, being with people, doing things like that, talking to the farmers, and that's, it's so great and everything. And so I think that, this is going to be a rough election year, just simply for the reason that Howard and I are probably one of the top targets, both of us. So it's going to be an interesting year, but it's nothing that we haven't been through before. And we're both out and about, and Howard's got a lot of energy and give me stuff about him being older than I am, but he's got a lot more energy sometimes than I do. So yeah,
that's where the energy has to kick in, though. I mean, this you're doing your regular thing, and then you're also campaigning, so it's not always it takes a little extra energy.
Well, and you're campaigning, but you're also doing your regular thing, because you wouldn't believe when you're doing a door or a parade yesterday, somebody came up with a problem, or the dairy breakfast this weekend, somebody came up and said, "Hey, can you check into this?" And and I'm having this problem. So it's kind of a goal. It's not this job you just don't turn off in an election year. You're doing it all the time. I mean, Wednesday, I'm on the WEDA board. I got to go to a WEDA board meeting all day, and I know Howard's on the hospital board, and he does stuff like that. So we're still doing stuff like that.
Have you heard much more statewide? I know here in Richland Center, they're contemplating tearing down a couple of the campus buildings on the campus site. Anything more statewide on the two-year systems or any of those things, Howard?
I have not heard anything. It's going to be interesting to see, who the Board of Regents recommends for the new system president. And I did have a meeting last week with one of the Board of Regents who is chairing the selection committee, and he wanted, my input and stuff. So, one of the challenges, it's a demographic challenge that is facing the state, we talked about earlier about the K-12 numbers. That's all hitting the university system as well, too. There's just fewer and fewer high school seniors that are going to be going into the system. So, I think the next president is going to have to at least be realistic about what the numbers look like into the future, because they can tell. We know how many first graders there are, second graders. We can see this a decade out, what the numbers look like coming out of our high schools and potentially into our colleges. So, but no, I haven't heard anything specifically about any plans at all on the two-year campuses.
What about, I think we talked about it earlier a little bit, but the revenue numbers in the state, how are they looking?
Yeah, so I just got these numbers, and I follow these pretty close, obviously. And so I met with the Legislative Fiscal Bureau last week. These are the numbers, the tax collections through the month of May. So this is 11 months out of the year. We end our year in a couple of weeks here. So, and bottom line is that, and I've been kind of watching these the last couple of months closely, because we, in the budget last year, we instituted a couple of pretty significant tax cuts, exempting the taxes for seniors on their retirement income. We cut the second bracket, which affects almost anybody in the state of Wisconsin that files a tax return. So those tax reductions were reflected in the refunds and stuff when people file their tax returns in February, March, and April. So by now we kind of see it's all been leveled off. We know what the impact is. Well, the numbers continue to be very, very strong. So right now we're the actual tax collections with all of these tax cuts, the taxes are up 3.7%, which is, may not seem like much, but again, we had tax cuts built in there. So on a year-over-year basis, that was pretty significant. We projected 1.4% increase in our tax collection. So the actual numbers are 2 full percentage points better than what we had projected when we did the budget last year. So, the numbers continue to be solid, and I'm sure at some point here we'll see some projections about that our surplus is higher than what we had been told a few months ago.
And
which is why I think we ought to go back. We ought to go back and do that deal, I think so.
Right, exactly. Todd, did you have anything?
Well, it's interesting that, Howard just said 2%. We were just told that one of the reasons that some of our members voted this down was because what if we have 0% revenue growth and we won't have any money and we'll be in a deficit, and a month later we're already at 2% and above 2%. So that kind of threw that window out the window, which is a good reason to use to go back in and say, so I don't know, Howard knows the numbers better than I do, but that money's sitting there and we're adding to it. What is the surplus going to be by the time we get to go to the next budget? I mean, so it's very important to get it out the door now.
That was something I think we talked about last month with Representative Kurtz. So we do nothing now, and again, it's all politics. So let's say there's a change in January. So then you do the budget. So at the earliest that there'll be anything would be near the end of June next year. Okay, a full 12 months from now, and then that gets signed, and then it takes time for that to get paid out to schools and all. I mean, you're talking 14, 15 months down the road as opposed to getting something done now. I just think we've got the money now, and we should execute now. Wasn't
the case though? It was going to be paid back on the previous school year for some of the special education, reimburse some of that as well.
Right. The first installment is for this year. It ends on June 30th, in a couple of weeks. So, so that first installment is a smaller amount, but it's still not bad here. Boscoville, 101,000, River Valley, 139,000, Riverdale, 64,000. I mean, that's meaningful. That's a staff, 2 staff, whatever. So, it would definitely help our schools, even in the current fiscal year that we're in right now.
Do you try to rally the troops, Todd? Try to bring somebody?
Well, I mean, we're in the assembly. We have the votes. I mean, we've got the votes regardless. We only lost. We all voted for it, and then 10 Democrats voted for it. Howard. The problem is over on Howard's side of the House, and we have all 15 Democrats over there and 3 Republicans that. Are from southeast of the state, interesting, and that voted against it, and so they need to peel off 2 over there, whether it's their side or the 3. I don't think we're probably going to change the 3 that on our side, but so whether the governor's reaching out, working with them, but I don't. They held tight, and I tell you, knowing this job and knowing the political side of it, 2 or 3 of them. I'm very surprised that they voted. I'm shocked that they will voted against this because I have a feeling it could come back to haunt them because it's very popular with the public, and that isn't the reason we did it. It was a good thing, but to see that poll, which I never thought I'd see a poll like that. I mean, that says something. So hopefully there's some regrets going on, and we can get back in and do this.
Overshadowed, I think, the whole tips, the taxes on tips. We haven't talked as much about that because the school and the refunds are maybe making better news, but that's a big thing too. The taps and taxes.
Oh yeah, and again, the feds exempted that last year when they did the bill. It was signed last year. So the feds exempted tips from federal taxes, and they exempted the overtime premium for federal taxes. The bill that we propose would just mirror that and just make Wisconsin the same as the federal. Because otherwise, right now, you go to file your tax return, and for 2025, and you had to add back in for Wisconsin purposes the tips and pay tax on it, or you had to add back into for Wisconsin purposes the overtime premium. So it sure would have been nice, even from I think about it as a CPA doing tax returns. It's just one less adjustment you have to make between filing your Wisconsin Wisconsin tax return and your federal tax return.
Summer plans? Todd? Vacation? Or?
No, there's no vacation for Todd. Maybe just a short, long weekend here or there, but that's about the extent of my life from now until November is going at it. We got a lot of things going on and stuff like that, so
absolutely
be out and about and yeah, a lot of things going on this summer. So,
how about you, Howard?
No,
nothing big other than
nothing.
Campaigning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
I my vacation is if I get to lay on the couch and watch Netflix for a few hours here and there. That's my vacation.
Veg a little bit. Yeah.
That's what I did yesterday when I got home about 5 o'clock. It's like that was a nice 5 hours before I went to bed.
And a lot of people fired up about the Brewers too. So they're having a great season again this year. So.
It's been great to watch Ms. pitch. I'm. It just wow, and I'm, normally not a real big watching a 1-0 game or whatever, but wow, that guy he's awesome. It's just fun watching him pitch.
We're seeing some history, that's for sure.
I hope he doesn't throw his arm out.
That's what everybody says.
I know.
All right, well, thanks, guys. We'll see you later this summer then.
Yeah, you bet.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
You bet. Howard Markline, State Senator, and also Todd Novak representing the 51st Assembly District on today's edition of The Morning Show.